The skies above Velmorex burned a dull orange as the sun slipped behind the thick jungle canopy. The air was heavy with humidity and spores, and even through her filtered breath mask, General Aurora Vance could taste the rot of this world. She stood at the edge of the clearing, flanked by her most trusted officers. No weapons. No armor. Just her black command uniform and the steel in her spine. The ceasefire beacon pulsed weakly above the alien monolith at the center of the site, neutral ground, agreed upon by both sides. On paper. This is a mistake, whispered Lieutenant Commander Pell, glancing around nervously. You should have sent a liaison. Vance didn't respond. She just stepped forward as the Thouser delegation emerged from the mists. General Krovnak was larger than she'd expected. 7 feet tall. Blue-gray armored hide, decorated in jagged bone piercings and a ceremonial blade as long as a man's torso strapped to his back. He moved like a predator, his 4 golden eyes locked on Vance with silent contempt. You bring no weapon, he said, voice deep and guttural, filtered through a translator node on his chest. Wasn't that the agreement? Vance replied coolly. Krovnak laughed. You humans always think treaties protect you. Paper doesn't matter in fire. Vance didn't blink. Neither does your ego in a grave. He moved closer. The alien guards behind him stood with rifles, against the rules. The Earth delegation noticed. Hands twitched. Vance held up a silent hand. Not yet. Krovnak circled her once, as if assessing livestock. You're the infamous General Vance, he said, leaning in close. You look small. She met his gaze. You'll regret thinking that. He smiled, sharp teeth like glass daggers. We have no interest in peace. This world belongs to the Dominion now. A beat of silence. Then gunfire. It happened in seconds. Thouser soldiers fired from the trees, hitting her officers. Pell fell with a gasp. A plasma bolt missed Vance by inches. She dove, rolled, kicked up a cloud of dust, but there was nowhere to run. 2 Thouser grabbed her by the arms. She struggled, twisted, landed a hard knee to one of their necks, but the second drove his elbow into her gut, knocking the wind from her lungs. Krovnak strode forward, drawing his ceremonial blade, then stopping just short. Watch, humans, he said, raising his voice. Your leader grovels. Then came the kick. A heavy boot struck her chest, lifting her off the ground. Pain exploded through her ribs as she crashed onto the packed dirt. Air fled her lungs. She couldn't breathe. She looked up, dazed, through blurred vision. He turned to his soldiers. Let her live. Let them see her crawl back, broken. Like the rest of your kind soon will. He stepped over her body and disappeared into the mist. She woke hours later, alone. Night had fallen. The jungle buzzed with alien life. Bioluminescent spores drifted through the air. The pain in her chest was sharp and deep, at least 2 ribs broken. Her comms device had been crushed. She had nothing but her bloodied uniform and what remained of her will. She pushed herself upright, gritting her teeth. Movement was agony, but still she crawled. 1 inch at a time. Somewhere behind the hills, distant artillery thudded. The war hadn't paused. It had escalated. Vance didn't cry. She didn't scream. She endured. By morning, she found what remained of her second forward outpost. Or rather, what Krovnak left of it. Bodies. Charred. Staked upright as a warning. Names she knew. Faces she trained with, fought beside. Men and women who trusted her leadership. On the rusted surface of a ruined ammo crate, she saw something, scratches. Etched with the last of his strength, her comms officer had scrawled a coded message. Krovnak ambushed the ridge. Small units retreating southeast cliffs. Alive. Maybe. She wiped blood from her lip. Rage flared behind her eyes, but she held it in. Later. First, she moved the bodies. One by one. A small fire. A soldier's burial. When the flames caught, she stood beside them in silence. It took her another day to reach the cliffs. Her breath rasped. Fever set in. A cut on her thigh oozed pus. Still, she moved. She used the shadows. Evaded drones. Ate what she could kill. Slept in tree hollows. She was no longer General Vance of Earth Command. She was just a wounded animal. And animals survived. At dusk, she reached the base of the cliffs and saw movement, figures with human silhouettes. She whistled twice, then once more, a coded tone from Unified Forces protocol. Weapons were instantly aimed at her. "Identify!" a voice barked. "Vance," she rasped. "Authorization Echo Bravo 7. A pause. Then, "Holy shit, that's her." They pulled her into a camouflaged trench network hidden beneath the foliage. Medics swarmed. Morphine hit her bloodstream like fire. Later, in a dim tent, her officers sat silently. "What happened?" asked Lieutenant Reyes, his face pale. Vance didn't answer immediately. She looked around at their gaunt faces. Survivors. Maybe a dozen. Barely armed. Exhausted. "He kicked me in front of our troops," she finally said. "Then burned them alive. And left me to crawl." No one spoke. "Then what?" asked Sergeant Mallon. "I crawled back," she said. "Now I'm going to kill him." The jungle wrapped around them like a noose. Inside the camouflage trench system carved into the cliffs of Velmorex, silence reigned. Soldiers slept with rifles tucked against their chests. Half the comms equipment sparked intermittently. Most of their food had spoiled weeks ago. The only thing that held this dying unit together was the idea that Earth hadn't forgotten them. Until General Aurora Vance walked in from the jungle, bleeding, broken, and alive. Now that idea had a face again. "Let me get this straight," Lieutenant Reyes said, pacing inside the command dugout. "You want to bait the Thalzer army into a crater and blow the whole damn place sky high?" Vance sat on a crate, shirtless, while a medic wrapped her bruised ribs. The bruises were deep. Faint green where the blood had pooled. Her eyes never left the map. "Yes," she said. "We lure them in, cut off their exits, collapse the walls, and trap them in their own overconfidence." Mallon snorted. "That crater's half a kilometer wide. You planning to dig graves for 10,000 with a shovel?" Vance didn't blink. "We won't dig. We'll drop the mountain on them." She tapped a location on the terrain scan. The crater's rim. Beneath it, unstable silicate rock and gas vents, volatile, perfect for demolition if triggered just right. "I've seen what we have," she continued. "Enough salvageable munitions, a few drone cores, some biofungal accelerants, and if Reyes stops blowing himself up, working detonators." Reyes raised an eyebrow. "That was one time. You lost your eyebrows for a week." "There." Vance stood, rolling her shoulders. Pain cracked through her side, but she ignored it. Pain meant she was still breathing. Pain meant she still had work. "We build kill zones, trip traps, funnel them through narrow points. Plant charges along these fault lines here, here, and here." She pointed. "If we hit them in the right order, it brings the whole basin down. With them inside." Mallon squinted. "You sure about the geology?" "No," Vance admitted. "But I'm sure about Krovnak. He'll come. He thinks I'm dead. He wants the last word." For the next week, the unit stopped surviving and started preparing to kill. Under Vance's command, exhaustion transformed into purpose. Soldiers who hadn't spoken for days now muttered coordinates and chemical ratios. They bartered salvaged parts like currency. They rebuilt what they could, repurposed what they couldn't. The jungle, once their enemy, became their weapon. Sergeant Mallon led the field teams, rigging fallen trees with proximity mines. Reyes coordinated fungus growth accelerants along wind paths, living traps that would burst toxic clouds on cue. Even the wounded found tasks, sewing leaf camo nets, loading ammo belts, creating dummy signals to spoof enemy sensors. At night, Vance slept little. Her mind replayed the kick, the screams of her officers, the mocking laughter. But she didn't dwell on vengeance. That was too easy. She thought of the way Krovnak had spoken to her. "You look small. Like all tyrants, He mistook cruelty for strength. She would correct that mistake. 12 days in, Reyes stood beside her at the ridge, watching the crater below. You ever think about walking away? He asked. Sneak out. Live quiet somewhere. Let Earth figure this out on its own. No, she said. That wasn't hesitation. There's no Earth to return to if he wins here. Reyes was quiet for a moment. Then, do you think they'll come, ma'am? Oh, they'll come, she said. Arrogance is predictable. Across the jungle, the Thalzer command base buzzed with activity. Krovnak reviewed intercepted transmissions. Blurry heat signatures. A human voice whispering coordinates. It sounded like Vance. But that was impossible. She is dead, he told his lieutenants. I kicked her down with my own foot. Her lungs were blood. One advisor hesitated. Still, General, the patterns. Krovnak slammed a clawed fist into the wall. Do you fear ghosts? The room fell silent. Prepare the army. We crushed this last outpost. Then we moved to Earth's outer colonies. These are the final echoes of a dying race. Back at the cliffs, dawn rose through purple clouds. Final preparations were nearly done. Vance stood before her small force, less than 100 soldiers. Dirty, underfed, half-armored. But in their eyes she saw fire. No one expects us to win, she told them. Krovnak expects silence. We'll give him thunder. She walked the line, meeting eyes. They call this a jungle moon. I call it Earth's fist. Let's make it hit. Cheers rose, not loud, not wild. Just enough. Focused. Intent. That night, Vance walked alone along the crater rim. The charges were planted. The lures deployed. Everything set. She knelt in the grass, ran her fingers through the soil. This is for every one of you, she whispered. Then she stood. The ghost had risen. Tomorrow, the storm would come. Dawn broke in silence. The fog clung to the jungle floor like a burial shroud, hiding the crater basin from the rising sun. Nothing moved. Not a bird, not a drone. Even the wind seemed to wait. Then came the march. Thalzer troops, rows of armored beasts, glinting blue in the early light, descended into the crater. Their war chants echoed, guttural and confident. Scouts scanned for resistance. Nothing. At the head rode General Krovnak, draped in blood-red bone plates, riding a hover carrier surrounded by guards. His 4 eyes glowed with satisfaction. They have no fight left, he growled. Only fear. On the crater's ridge, Vance watched through binoculars. Her heart beat steady. One deep breath, then another. She clicked her comms. They're in position. Copy, Reyes whispered. Charge sets are live. All squads ready. Vance raised a fist. All teams stand by. Below, the alien column spread out across the basin. Troop carriers landed. Supply crates dropped. Krovnak dismounted and stalked toward the center of the clearing. Perfect. Vance dropped her fist. The world erupted. Charges along the southern rim detonated with thunderous force. Tons of rock collapsed, burying the rear of the alien column. Seconds later, vines ignited, releasing acidic spores into the air. Panic surged through the Thalzer ranks. Their formation broke. Roars turned to screams. Soldiers scrambled, some choking, others crushed by falling boulders. Vance's voice cut through the chaos on comms. Phase 2. Pin them. From the treetops, her commandos opened fire. Sniper rounds split the air. Mines burst under clawed feet. Human fighters, caked in mud, emerged like ghosts, guns blazing. Lieutenant Reyes tossed a sticky charge onto a transport's intake. Boom, it flipped midair. Happy Crater Day, you ugly bastards! He shouted, diving for cover. Krovnak barked orders, furious. Form ranks! Find the enemy! Push forward! But the jungle wouldn't let him. More charges blew on the eastern ridge, triggering landslides. Thalzer units tried to regroup, only to stumble into traps, trip wires that released spike pods, biomines that exploded in toxin bursts. In minutes, their precision dissolved into chaos. On the northern cliff, Vance sprinted through underbrush toward the command strike zone. Reyes and Malin followed, flanking her. The final act required proximity. As they approached, Reyes broke off to engage a group of alien gunners. "Go!" he shouted. "I'll buy you 10 minutes!" Vance didn't hesitate. Inside the smoke-covered basin, Krovnak had climbed atop a mound of debris. His guards surrounded him, still loyal, still organized. He scanned the ridge with burning eyes. "Come out, human!" he hissed. "Let me finish what I started." A soft thud landed behind him. He turned just as a magnetic dart stuck to his chest plate. Then another. Then Vance's voice, amplified through a salvaged speaker, echoed behind him. "Surprise!" She stepped from the smoke, rifle lowered, exoarm exposed, scarred, reinforced, primed for war. Krovnak snarled. "You should have stayed dead. You should have kicked harder." He lunged. They met like colliding storms. His strength was monstrous, each blow from his blade dented steel. Vance ducked, countered, struck with her exoarm, the metal fist cracking against his ribs. They circled amid the burning crater, bodies around them, fire snapping at their feet. He roared. "You're nothing! Flesh and fear!" She headbutted him. "Then why are you bleeding?" He staggered. She charged, shoulder slamming him into a wrecked vehicle. Sparks flew. He tried to rise. She grabbed his throat, lifted him slightly, magnetic darts beeping faster. Krovnak spat blood. "What is this?" "Insurance." She slammed her arm into his chest, driving the final charge deep. "From Earth. With love." She leapt back. Boom. The magnetic core inside his armor detonated, contained but powerful. His chest plate exploded inward. He dropped to his knees, stunned. Coughing. Vance approached slowly. "You humiliated my people," she said. "But you forgot who we are." She activated the exoarm's final piston. A sharp whine. Krovnak looked up. "We don't crawl." She brought the arm down, hard onto his spine. It cracked like a dry branch. The silence afterward was deep and wide. Vance stepped away from the corpse. She tapped into his command channel. Broadcast on every Thouser frequency. "This is General Vance," she said, voice steady. "Your warlord is dead. Your army is broken. If you want to leave, walk. If you want to fight, we'll bury you next." The feed cut. Across the crater, alien troops dropped weapons. Some screamed. Some ran. Hours later, the smoke cleared. Human survivors gathered in the crater's remains, tending to wounded, counting losses. There were many. But they stood on their feet. Velmorex was theirs. Reyes limped over to Vance, blood on his temple. "Well, that was subtle." She managed a tired smile. Sergeant Malin saluted her from across the wreckage. "You did it," Reyes said. "We did it." "No," she said. "We survived." "That's different." He looked around. "So what now?" Vance stared at the horizon, sun rising through the broken trees, battlefield cooling in ash. "Now," she said, "we remind the stars what humans are made of.